and welcome to my new TV series. This is episode number 4. And we have Miss Kuterba here, all the way from Chicago, Illinois. Welcome, Miss Kuterba. We are very happy to have you, and we cannot wait to learn about you and the most important topic you think every woman should know about it.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I am a 23-year survivor of domestic violence. 15 of the 23 years I was married to my abuser. We have a child together, a son that at this point doesn't speak to me. I think he's tired of being in the middle of it. I have a daughter of my own. And when I left, I kind of have two Independence Days. First, 4th of July is for the whole United States, but I celebrate my Independence Day from the date I left, and it was on November 18th of 2015. So I celebrate that day also. We had got kicked out of yet another place. He wasn't very dependable on paying the bills, and I would work and try to do as much as I could, but I was only a waitress. He was really bad about holding me back from bettering myself, getting like a better job, or he pretty much controlled all the money. I had been living in a hotel with my daughter and my grandson. My daughter had been in an abusive relationship, and I helped get her out of that relationship, but then she was back home with me. So after about 4 months of living in a hotel, I'd had enough and left. One morning when he went to work, I was smart enough to know to wait for him to go to work to leave because I knew he would try to stop me. So I was in the hotel, mind you, with my daughter and my grandson also. We'd been there for about 4 months, and I had been planning it. I had planned to escape a few other times before this, but things would happen that would keep me from being able to go. Like a surgery, or didn't have enough money, couldn't figure out where I was going to go, just stuff like that. But this time I'd had enough. I was tired of living in a hotel. I was tired of my daughter watching, me go through this our whole lives. And now she was starting to repeat my steps and had been in an abusive relationship. So I took my daughter and my grandson, and we left one day when he went to work. We threw as much stuff as we could fit in the car and what stuff we had on us, because most of our stuff was in storage. And I went about an hour and a half away to my mom's house, and then the harassment started. The phone calls, the text messages, eventually it was emails. Would call friends of friends. It just went on, and the harassment got worse by the day. I hadn't called the police enough times during the abuse, so I didn't leave a trail, which was a big mistake. You should always leave a trail. So that kind of hindered me getting a protective order. And mind you, I was in Texas at this time. Their laws are a little different. Laws are different state to state. Because he hadn't laid a hand on me in 30 days and I didn't have any marks on me, they wouldn't let me have the protective order. He would find out where I worked. He would call and harass me, and then he would call the location and harass the workers, make threats. He had people watching me. And when you tell people this, they think you're crazy. When you say, he's got people watching me, he knows my every move, they think you're being paranoid just because you've been abused. And that wasn't the case at all. He really was stalking me. So he was calling my work. He would say creepy things like, you really should be careful driving home that late at night. Um, what were you doing at Whataburger? So he knew exactly where I was at all times. I had changed my phone number 4 times, um, within probably a 6-month period because he kept finding out my new phone number. Um, he would track me through, any means possible. He, um, he would track me through, like, Kroger savings cards, anything that had, an address registered to it. Um, and you wonder what good does that do? But when you go online, when you're registered to something like that and they know your password, they can tell where you've made your purchases at. It shows the last store that you made a purchase at. So it was a way of him tracking. I had to change all of those. Of course, bank accounts, passwords, any kind of password you could think of. And the list goes on and on and on. And he began harassing family members really bad. He was making threats, to family members, friends, trying to get information out of them. Um, he even resorted um, to getting my mother all upset, who has a lot of health problems. And eventually, I went and I had enough evidence, and I had a really, really big file of emails, text messages, pictures, um, messages from, third parties, from other people like friends, family. Eventually, I went down and was able to at least file harassment charges. Um, my mom and my daughter did also, but they ended up, not following through, um, because of how long it got dragged out, and that's a big problem with, with our law enforcement, is they keep dragging it out, and then the people just give up. They're just like, I'm tired, I don't want to deal with this anymore, I'm moving on. So eventually, I think it took about 2.5, 3 years before he actually, got arrested. He got picked up on something else, um, and he had probation, and that's all he got out of it, was some probation. It didn't stop him. He still tries to get information out of people. He knows my Social Security number by heart, so it doesn't matter where I move to, or anytime I use my Social Security, like if I get a new job, he's gonna know where I'm working at and where I'm at because of that. I tried to go to Social Security and see if they would give me a new Social Security number. I didn't want to have to get a whole new identity. Um, but they will not grant you, a new Social Security number, even though I had overwhelming evidence that he was blasting my name, my Social Security all over social media and stuff. They just wouldn't do it. So they denied me. The only way that I could get it is probably if I changed my name and do a whole new identity, and I wasn't willing to do that. So, but I ended up, because the harassment just kept going and going, and they were calling family members and getting, my whole family was just in an uproar over it. So eventually, what happened is, my daughter ended up moving out with a friend, and when she moved out, I eventually ended up, because he was stalking me so bad at work, I ended up leaving my job and I ended up moving back home to Illinois to get away from him. I figured if he was going to harass me, I would make it harder for him and move to another state. So that's what I did. And so I'm just basically here to tell you that when you decide that you're going to leave and you're going to take your power back, it is a long, hard struggle, but it's worth it. My daughter's doing good now. My grandson, um, I'm happier than I've ever been, and I've really spread my wings and doing a lot of things, and I've made it my mission to help other people, um, get out of bad situations. So that's where I'm at right now. I've been in Illinois for about, 5 years now, and I've even remarried, and I'm very happy. I found someone that had been in an abusive relationship itself and understands, and we get along great. And I'm very blessed that I feel blessed that God allowed me to escape that, because a lot of women don't.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of women are still dealing with this stalking, with everything they want to back in their life. They just don't understand what happened and that they're the reason why you left, and everything what they have done, it's not something that it's wrong, and it's really, really difficult route. So if you go back and do something different, uh, are you gonna do actually something different, looking in retrospect?
Yes, I would have left a lot sooner. That's what I would have done differently. Um, but people don't know. People are uneducated. They don't know anything. They don't know there's places that help. They don't know where to go to do anything. And they've been with a narcissist, it's all about control, complete control over you. And they beat you down, they make you feel worthless, they make you feel like nobody else is going to ever want you. Um, mine would threaten me, hey, if you ever leave, I'm going to make your life, living hell, blah, blah, blah. And I believed that, I believed him. I knew he would. I knew he had that ability. Um, but when I'd had enough, and I wasn't, there was no going back. But yeah, definitely I would have left sooner. Um, I don't regret the relationship itself in the beginning, because if it wasn't for the relationship, I wouldn't have my son, and I wouldn't have learned so many valuable lessons by going through it. I just wish I hadn't endured it as long. I wish I would have left sooner.
I believe you. I believe you. So, when exactly did you decide that you had enough? Women are having this problem to come to conclusion that what is going on in their life, it has to stop, and it's not something they should endure.
Well, learn the red flags. I didn't know what red flags were. Um, I didn't realize that I was seeing them because I didn't know what they were. So definitely need to learn your red flags. Um, like love bombing and the vicious cycle of, um, you know, oh, I love you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And then the next thing they're angry with you over something silly, like, you know, you made something they didn't like for dinner, or, God knows what. Um, a big thing with me was, if I gained any amount of weight at all, I would have to hear about it. Well, you don't look like you did when we first met. Well, no, I've had another child since then, or I'm getting older, and so there was a lot of body shaming going on for me, a lot of financial abuse, where he would control the money, and I couldn't spend money on myself without accounting for every little dime. Um, it was just, the list went on and on. But really, I just wish that people would learn the red flags. And if you're in a situation where you're in a vicious cycle where you keep giving them another chance to change and they slowly regress back to the way it was, they're not ever going to change. And if they're a narcissist, they're not going to change anyway, because to them, they're not doing anything wrong. Everything's everybody else's fault. So you just have to get to the point where you're tired of the cycle, and you have to realize it's not going to get better. It's not going to change. That person is not, you can't change them with your love, because it's all about them. So
That's true. That's very true. Did you have people like, probably you were a member of a church or community, did you have women telling you, you shouldn't do that, you should listen to him, or you should find a way to cope with the way he's treating you. Have you had these kind of advices for women from women?
From other women when I was going through it, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not really. Even I didn't really have a best friend because he kind of ran everybody off. Um, you know, anyone that I had as a friend, but my coworkers, my coworkers didn't even know. I was so ashamed. I didn't tell anybody. So, and I think my family knew that there was a few events where he was probably out of line, but even my family didn't know the extent of the abuse. The only one that really knew was my children, of course, that had to watch it for all those years. And it was more emotional abuse, like financial, emotional, psychological. There were a couple occasions where there was some physical alterations, but um, it was mostly emotional. And emotional is the hardest abuse to it's the hardest abuse to prove. It really is because it doesn't leave marks. I
Yeah.
also think it's probably the hardest to heal from also. So, but I spent probably about 3.5 years in extensive counseling. When I first moved back to Illinois, I went through I think it was either 8 weeks or 12 weeks, where I would go to a counseling session, a group counseling session, twice a week, and I believe it was like a 12-week course. And then I was also doing counseling like twice a week besides that, and then I continued on with that for about another 2.5, 3 years. So I don't do the counseling now. I tend to get called to do counseling now for people that are going through the same thing. But um, you learn a lot from it. You learn uh, another hard reason for women to leave is because they most likely have PTSD and they don't realize that's what they have. And so they're triggered and they're scared. They don't know where to go. They don't want to ask for help. They're embarrassed, you know? And so that was one of the big things for me. I didn't realize how bad my PTSD was. And then I had going through all the counseling and stuff, I looked back and realized not only did I have PTSD, but I used to have panic attacks, um, to the point where if I was like driving or something, I'd have to pull over. I couldn't breathe. Um, it's like I was hyperventilating, and I would get break out in hives all over, um, break out in cold sweats. It was terrible. There were also my hair was falling out from the stress, like by the handfuls. Um, so it being abused gives you a lot of ailments besides just mental. So, but women just need to be educated that there is help out there and that they don't have to live that way. They don't have to be treated that way by someone.
That's very true. And your body starts to shut off. You kind of losing yourself completely, and most of the time, it's a good chance you can die from it, from a constant verbal abuse, which is really, really damaging. So, talking about that, you said you went to so many counseling, and I guess you found good therapies. There is a huge problem finding somebody who can relate to your story and don't tell you and look at you like, what is this woman talking about? Because if you have never been in domestic violence and abusive relationship, it's kind of a difficult for the people to relate and connect to your story, because not everything comes from a book, right? So
Right.
right now you're working with the women, right? And you're helping them.
Yes. Right now, I'm a director of Illinois Domestic Violence Awareness, and I run that. We do a rally every year. Um, the rally is to bring awareness to the community, and we usually get we get like the local state's attorney and some um, Senate, some House of Representatives, some political people so that they can tell what laws to help with the law part. And then we also try to get some actual survivors that have been through it and what they did to heal from it and to survive the abuse and overcome it. That'll be October 4th this year. We also do fundraisers throughout the year that helps bring awareness to. Back on May 1st, we did a princess meet and greet, and it was a good way to get the public to come. And of course, all of the proceeds went to our group to help with our cause. But the kids had a great time, and it helped get the word out to the parents that there's groups out there to help people. So I get, well, with the COVID going on, it's been overwhelming for people to be locked up with their abuser, and everybody else, it was like out of a job, and I was like doing overtime because so many people needed someone to talk to or advice. And a lot of times I get people that contact me for advice that they want to get to forward on to someone that needs the advice, that someone that's being abused. So I get a lot of people that contact me for that too. But we try to get the word out there. We're my husband and I are on a lot of different boards and committees that help in the community to help get the word. We work closely with a lot of the other agencies too, and we even volunteer at one of them for their crisis hotline. So a lot of times the abuse can be connected in many different forms. For instance, a child that grows up in a household witnessing the domestic violence, they may be part of it too. They may be getting abused. So you have your children advocacy groups for abuse, that a lot of times they interlock, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of times, even your rape victims or you know other type of abuse, can still come from a family that's where there's other abuse in the home besides that. So a lot of times they kind of intermingle with each other. So we did an outreach where we pretty much help with all forms of abuse. But the main one is domestic violence, of course. So this year we're actually, our topic for our rally will be how children are affected that grow up in a home with domestic violence. So
Yeah. And I have a question for you because I'm kind of going around the groups, domestic violence, and looking what women are looking for. And there is a question how you were able to find a partner after what happened to you. Because most women, they just don't want to think about it. They just think that they should stay alone, and they constantly assume that they're going to find the same kind of a person and the same thing is going to repeat itself again and again. Can you tell
and
us how did you do it?
yes, I can. And you know what? It's true. A lot of times it's a vicious cycle. And if you don't get the help, um, because unfortunately, man, I really hate saying this because this is a terrible thing to say, but it's true. When you've been with an abuser that long, you do become part of the problem. And here's why. They have love bombed you. They have manipulated your mindset and the way you react to the abuse. You're not in a healthy state of mind. So you need to get that counseling. You need to learn what those red flags are. You need to learn how they manipulated you with the love bombing and all of the other, there's lots of different things that they do besides that. But you're psychologically affected. So you're not the person you used to be. So you definitely, you need to heal. You really do. And I kind of went about it a little backwards. It was not by choice. I had no intentions of getting involved with anyone. My goal was just to get out alive and stay alive, basically. Because there were threats of bodily harm, and I'll hunt you down and bring you back home where you belong, and just all kinds of craziness. But what ended up happening for me is actually a friend that I connected with on Facebook, because I have a lot of friends that I connected with me living in Texas, and I still have a lot of friends in Illinois. I reconnected with some of my friends, and one of the friends happened to be someone that I went to junior high with, and we were just friends. We talked back and forth, and I kind of confided in him, and we became really good friends. And so when I moved back to Illinois, well, he came and visited me first in Texas. I didn't just move back to Illinois, but I decided that things weren't getting any better, and every time that I found a new job, my ex was going to find out where. So I figured I'd make it a little harder. So basically, I knew I had the support of some friends back home in Illinois. And so, we hit it off. We got along really well. We took it real slow. And next thing I know, he's my best friend. And then the next thing you know, we're in love with each other. We didn't realize it, and we didn't plan it either. So I think it was kind of maybe a little bit of God's work there on that one, because I wasn't looking for it at all. I really wanted to be done with the situation I was in and do my healing, but I was able to do my healing and do my counseling, and still have that relationship with him. Um, but the most important thing that we did, that when we first decided that we were going to just be more than friends, is we set boundaries. We knew from being in abusive relationships what our boundaries were going to be, and we set those boundaries with each other, and we keep them even to this very day. And we did do some counseling together, because my husband was not only abused as a child and had an abusive relationship, he was also abused in the military. He does have some PTSD. So we went to counseling together to learn what our triggers are, so that we don't accidentally trigger each other. And we can tell when the other one's been triggered, and we know things to do to help kind of bring them down from that too. So, but I would just say you need to work on yourself. You need to heal, and don't look for someone. The right person will come to you when it's time. Because I really wasn't looking for anyone. That was for sure.
That's why you got somebody, because you weren't looking for anyone. If you were looking and
Exactly.
pushing yourself,
Exactly.
things would have gone wrong, for sure.
Right. Exactly.
So there is something else women are asking a lot. How can you get rid of this trauma bond you have with the abuser?
That goes back to counseling. Um, I would say trauma bonding is probably one of the most difficult parts of the healing process, um, because you don't know you have it. You don't know you have it until you get out of that relationship. Um, and normally the trauma bonding kind of goes hand in hand with the PTSD, I think, because you've been traumatized so much. Um, and I don't know that you ever completely heal from it. You just learn what your triggers are, and you learn how to deal with it. To this very day, sometimes I still get triggered, or certain things make me jumpy. I don't like people coming up behind me and touching me. Um, just stuff like that. It makes me jump. It really does. And so I think it's something you deal with the rest of your life. Just learn how to deal with it, and you learn what the triggers are. Um, and find a healthy outlet that works for you, maybe art or poetry, or a new hobby, boxing, whatever.
Yeah, this would be a good idea. And I have another question. You said he was stalking you, he was going after you. When exactly did that stop?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly when it stopped. To this very day, like I said, my son still doesn't speak to me. It's been probably maybe about 4 years since I've last spoke to my son. Um, my son's initial excuse was if he didn't have anything to do with me or talk to me, there would be nothing for his dad to use against me or, to find me or he wouldn't pump him for information. But I'm not sure to this very day that he still doesn't kind of, try to get information out of people or um I've definitely made it hard for him, of course. I had he had the charges for harassment in Texas. And then when I moved here, he was still harassing me, so I had um a protective order. It didn't stop him. He still kept um mostly third party, like he would try to get information through someone else. Um he tried to get all of my friends turned against me. He would tell them terrible things. Um and I can give you an example of that. He would tell um family members that I've slept with everyone else in the family. I slept with everyone in the state of Texas. Um, that I used to, let's see, what else did he say? I've let it go at this point, so it's kind of, I've almost forgot all the bad things. Um, he, um, he tries to say I made a pornography tape, and supposedly he made this fake tape and shared it. I'm not sure where he shared it at. He even shared it with some family members and swore it was me. And so I have all these poor family members calling me, telling me this. They're horrified. And um, it's you really just don't have you can't care what other people think of you when you leave because they're going to run you through the mud. It's about your survival, and you just kind of let them do what they're going to do. They're going to do it anyway instead of trying to fight it. Um, with him, his crazy showed eventually, and everybody knew um, that I really, wasn't that person that he was making me out to be. But um, leaving is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But if you want to ever have happiness, you have to do it. It's just something you have to decide that your life is worth living for, and you want something better for yourself, and that you're tired of living like that, and no one deserves to be abused mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, any way, shape, or form. um, and the number one question that people ask is, well, why didn't you leave sooner, or why don't you just leave if you're still with them? Well, it's dangerous. First of all, the most dangerous time is when you're leaving them. um, think I saw where there's 10 million men and women in the U.S. Subject to domestic violence. Um, 20 people per minute. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men are subject to domestic violence. 20% of all marriages have domestic violence in them. Um, if there's a presence of a gun, the homicide rate, the percentage goes up to 500%. So these narcissists are very dangerous when they have a gun, because they'll do anything to gain back control of a situation that they feel like they've lost control of. And when you're leaving, they've lost control because they're losing you, and they thought they were in control of you. So anyone that comes between that control and something that they think is theirs, in my case, he thought I was his property, basically. He even told the detective that, but she's my wife. So it doesn't mean you can do that to her, you know. So
Absolutely.
19% of the domestic violence cases involves a gun. So we actually had an officer in a city nearby me that him and another officer had responded to a domestic violence call, and both officers ended up getting shot trying to save this, get this person out of there because the guy had a gun, and one of them actually passed away, and he had, beautiful little daughters, and so it's dangerous. I mean, and I really wish people would quit asking that if they didn't know the details, well, why didn't you leave sooner? Well, there's a lot of good reasons, but that's one of them. They're probably threatening the victim, oh, well, if you ever leave me, I'll hunt you down and shoot you. Or with me, my ex used my biological daughter, because I had a biological daughter, and then our son was our son together, but he would use that as leverage. If you don't do this, I'm going to do this to your daughter, or I'm going to take it out on her, or just they use the children against you. They really do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They brainwash them. They're
Yes,
so good. I know.
they're professional manipulators is what I like to call them.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
and and
Masters.
um, all of this abuse, there is, besides the economic abuse, there's a lot of side effects of all this abuse that's going on, and the longer you stay, the worse it is. Um, the kids are watching this. Like if say there's a 92% of murder suicides in this country are some kind of intimate partner violence is involved in that 72%. Okay, out of those 72%, about 90% of them have children in the home that are eyewitnessing this violence. So if that gives you any idea that it's an alarming number.
Yes.
These children, they're victims too, not just the spouse or the intimate partner. And all of this abuse causes many, so many things, psychologically and health wise: depression, suicidal thoughts, um, you know, gastrointestinal problems, neurological disorders, PTSD. They have now a new PTSD that's called CPTSD, which is chronic post traumatic syndrome disorder, and that's what I had. Someone who's been in that same abusive relationship for a very long time, which in my case I was. It's pretty much treated the same way with the counseling and stuff. It just usually means that you've been through it a lot longer, so your healing process might be a lot more in depth. Um, it causes this abuse, and it's not necessarily the abuse itself, it's the stress, it's the fight or flight that your body's constantly in that causes the problems. Like for me, hypertension, I have hypertension now. It can cause cancer, cardiovascular diseases, addictions. Sometimes victims start drinking, to dull the pain. And the economic abuse was a real big one for me. You know, if you have a fight, they, you know, with me, if we would have an argument, um, not only would he keep me up all night arguing, um, and ranting and raving, but he would keep me from going to work the next day. And you think, well, how does he do this? Well, he would take my car keys away. He would take a part off out from under the car so it wouldn't start. Um, just sabotaging your employment. That's a big one. Interfering with you while you're at work by constantly calling, showing up, phone calls, etc., demanding you to quit, or if you're trying to get a job, preventing you from going to the job interview. Just the list goes on and on. But a lot of times women don't leave because of the economic abuse. The abuser has all of the control over the money. A lot of times they won't even let the victim pay the bills or have any access to the money. Or if the victim does work, like in my case, it was like I still had to account for every penny that I had, and it was my money. I was making it, but I never spent money on myself because I wasn't allowed, so I didn't know how.
I know this story very well, believe me. Very well. You have even business with him. You're doing most of the work. You're babysitting him. You're giving him the tools, and they turn around and they say, "Oh, she didn't work. She didn't work at all. Although you can take care for the kids, he doesn't do anything to take care for the kids. You do run the business and everything, and you be the counsel, the life coach to make him, feel good and continue with the business." And he's like, "Oh, she didn't work all of her life, taking care for the kids, running your business, and she didn't do anything." And people are so inclined to believe them because of the illness they have, and they're so good in manipulating other people. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, they sometimes they can even get credit in the victim's name, run
Now
their
this
credit.
story.
In my case, my credit was run. Um, Overdraw the if you have a checking account with them, overdraw the checking account. The list just goes on and on. So it's next to impossible for that victim to save any money, so that they can leave, and that's how they want it. They don't want you to have any independence at all, or be able to leave. Um, a lot of times a woman will leave, and because of the economic abuse, she doesn't have enough money to go stay at a hotel, or she doesn't have enough money for gas to get away, and now if they've prevented her from working her job and she's lost her job, well, now she has no job, her credit's ruined. So they do that. It's sabotage. It's another method of keeping you there with them, because they like to feel like you need them.
Exactly. That's how they want to present themselves in front of other people. You can leave them everything, the business, the money, you can do stuff for them, and they still go after you. They still sabotage you. They make you do things you don't want to do, and it's because of the people they surround themselves with. And sometimes they surround themselves with very powerful people, and it's really difficult route. And I know that very well, but you should choose yourself. You should always choose yourself, not never give up on yourself, because at least you have a freedom not to put up every day with this craziness, with this breaking stuff, yelling, screaming at you,
Right.
keeping awake all night. And if they have drinking problem, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yes, it is. And I always, it's anytime you're with a narcissist, it doesn't matter what you do, it's never going to be good enough for them.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't care if you are Wonder Woman in the house at home. You know, like mine, if I worked full time, that didn't matter. He still wanted his dinner at a certain time. The house still needed to be clean. The laundry still needed to be done. I mean, it didn't matter that I worked full time. I was still supposed to keep up, because in his eyes, that was a quote woman's job. Um, and this is just I mean, when you get ready to leave, you're provoking the worst, their worst behavior. To them, you're wronging them by leaving them, or you're betraying them, maybe is another way of putting it. And even though your reason is because you're abused and you want they don't have the same perception of reality that a normal person has. They have their own little world, and their world's a lot different than a normal person's world. They lack empathy. They have absolutely no empathy for any of the consequences that they do. They don't care. All they care about is themselves and getting that control. And um, they feel like once you leave them, they feel like that someone's messed with their world, and basically it's like starting a war with them. You know, they'll stop at nothing with the bullying, the stalking, um, just and for me, the worst thing you can do to a narcissist is once you leave. Like with me, my kids are grown, so I know it's a lot different when you have children with them and you have visitation rights and all of that in the mix. That makes it really hard, and it's a lot more dangerous in that situation too, because you have to meet with them. And but that's probably a whole nother subject for a whole nother time.
Yeah.
Um, but with me, I was lucky. My kids were grown, and I was able to make a plan to leave, and that's very important. Now, my plan wasn't planned out like, you know, 6 months ahead of time. I think I had a couple weeks to put a plan together. But the main important thing was my plan was to make sure he was gone when I left, so he wouldn't stop me, because he would have stopped at nothing to make me stay, and I know that. And with my daughter and my grandson there, in my case, um, that would have heightened their danger level also, and I didn't want that. So if you can at all leave when they're not there. Um, you know, be just be ready for the craziness, because basically you started war with them by leaving. But with trying to get back to your empowerment and who you are, and finding yourself again, you have to ignore them, and I mean completely stone cold ignore. Block them from every media there is. Change all your passwords. Change your phone number if you have to, or get the feature where you block. I have the feature now where I can block numbers, and it's a blessing. Um, and just be prepared for a war, because it's a war. And you're fighting a war for your freedom is what you're fighting a war for. Basically, your freedom from them. So make a plan. Get you a support system. Get you some counseling lined up. Take your precautions too. And do all those things to get your power back. If there's things that you can do before you leave too. If you know you're going to leave, you can get some important papers together. Um, if you can't sneak them out of the house and give them to a trusted friend, then make copies and give them to someone. Maybe um, stash you like a backpack full of some bare necessities and important things that are things that are important to you, like in the back of your closet somewhere where they don't know where it's at, or stash some money if you can without them knowing. And you know, if you can, if you do have a job, try to open up some kind of account or some kind of savings or something in your name without them knowing, and try to stash some money away. Um, as soon as you leave, try to get your name off of everything. Get your name off that checking account. Um, I didn't do this quick enough for my storage building, and he he went and changed all the locks on the storage building and kept all of my belongings. So I pretty much had some clothing with me, is what I had when I left. So it was a small price to pay for knowing that I was away from the situation and free. So, but yeah, take your power back. That's the best advice I can give people, and make a plan. And just get you a support system. Um, but you know, it's not as easy as just leave. It's not that easy ever. And usually people that say that don't know, they've never been in the situation. So
Absolutely. So most of the women stay there. First of all, they fear from their abuser. The second one, they don't have place to stay, and the third one is financial problem. They need to have money so they can leave. So where did you go? I guess you were able to save some money on the side, right? Before you left, you had something. What
um,
is your, yeah.
I actually didn't have a whole lot of money saved, because he knew where every penny went. And he was a heavy cigarette smoker. So you know I was a waitress, so with my tips every day, I had to stop and buy his cigarettes. Um, and I, I myself had been a smoker, and I had got real sick. I got like some kind of a stomach bacterial infection or something, and I cannot stand the taste of the cigarettes anymore. And I ended up quitting. I used and I don't condone this. Everybody has to do what's right for them, but I actually used the vape cigarette to quit and stepped my way down on the nicotine level. And I've never met anyone in my life that got mad at me because I quit smoking, because um, he didn't have anyone to smoke cigarettes with now, and he liked me better when I smoked, whatever that meant. Um, so, but um, I didn't have a lot of money saved. I had one paycheck coming, and I had whatever money I had on me from the tips that I worked. I literally told my work 2 or 3 days before, um, that I was leaving and going to my mom's, and that I was going to have to quit because I couldn't come to work there. I wouldn't be safe. He was stalking me. They were very understanding about it. They didn't even realize what was going on. I even had a lady from the corporate office a while later call and check up on me, and you know, because of a circumstance like that, I'm still eligible for rehire if I wanted to. But I went to my mom's house. I didn't have I didn't know where else to go. I didn't have a choice, and I was hoping that with my mom living like an hour and a half away, that it would be far enough to deter him, and of course it wasn't. Social media has really made um, it's really taken the bullying and the stalking to a whole new level, especially for the victims. Um, just your digital footprint too, so it makes it really hard.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, sometimes the digital footprint's good too, because um, the phone I had at the time, the the police department could extract those text messages and stuff that came through on that phone for evidence. Um, but it's still a way. It's still a way to stalk people. And I had a plan, but I didn't have a long a long drawn out plan. It was probably maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. I couldn't tell my children because, especially my son, and my son had later confided in me that he was hurt because I didn't tell him I was leaving. Um, and he had to find out by his dad calling him hysterically. And, I tried to explain to him, well, if I would have told you that I was leaving, you would have acted differently. He would have picked up on it, and he would have pumped you for information, and then my whole plan would have been spoiled. So that, and I think that's some of the resentment why maybe he doesn't talk to me either, is because I didn't confide that. And I probably should have trusted him enough to tell him, but I can't go back and change it now. I did have to tell my daughter, but I told her the night before. I said, hey, we're going to get up in the morning. As soon as he goes to work, we're going to throw all of our stuff, in a suitcase or a bag or whatever. We're going to load it up in the car and we're leaving. So, yeah, I had to give her real short notice too. I didn't want anybody um, to set off any alarms so that he would know and spoil my plan. So,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You did the right thing, and sometimes it's safety for your son. Who knows what he's gonna do. So basically, what you try to protect him. But it's really take time. People see things differently. That's the thing. Eventually, he's gonna come around. I'm sure about it.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, what is your advice to the women who don't have anybody? Because I have seen a lot of women, they don't have their parents on their side, they don't have anybody, they have themselves or the dogs and the children. What is your advice to them?
Um, that's a little harder because if you don't have friends or someone that you can have a support system with, but it's not impossible. There's a lot of new agencies out there that are starting to help women that don't have anyone, um, and just they need to familiarize themselves with the local resources so that when they do get ready to leave, they know where they can go and what they can do. And I know that I don't know, and I'm not going to say every city, every state does this, but I know that they're starting to have actual house shelters that actually accept your pets as well. Because a lot of times they don't want to leave their pets, so they stay because you know that pet's important to them. That pet's probably emotional support, and they don't want to leave without their pet, so they don't want to go to a shelter where they can't take their pet. And I know that there's starting to be more and more places that have pet friendly shelters, or they have a shelter that will keep your pet for you for free while you're at the shelter. And just I would say do your research in your area and find out what helps out there. Um, of course, you got to be careful that the abuser doesn't find out that you're checking into this. Um, so I don't know how you can, you'll have to try to erase your history or whatever so that they don't find out. But or maybe ask if you're close enough to your neighbor or something. Maybe ask your neighbor to check into it for you and give you the information. I have a lot of people that I do that for because they're still with their abuser and they don't want to, set them off. So, and you know, and a lot of times, I've actually had friends, and I didn't realize I had so many friends that I went to school with that had been in abusive relationships or were in abusive relationships until all this started for me. And then they all started opening up about what they'd been through, and that's kind of part of the reason why we ended up starting a whole group is because we just didn't realize it. But one of my particular friends, um, her husband was an alcoholic. He didn't work. She was the breadwinner. And he refused to quit drinking. He refused to get help. And I probably, and I'm going to say nag for lack of a better word, nagged at her for over 4 years. Ever since we had reconnected and I moved back to Illinois, I saw how he treated her when they were in public. I saw when he got an attitude with her or the things that he would say, and I knew. So I kind of confronted her about it in a friendly way and found out that he indeed was very abusive, mostly psychologically, but there had been, a few times physical. Well, I always kept that that I'm here for you open door policy with her. I said, I'm still going to be your friend, even if you're not ready to leave him. I said, but there's going to come a time when you've had enough and you'll be ready to leave, and I'm still going to be here for you. And I just would always remind her, what I initially ended up doing is setting up a safe word with her. And what the safe word means is if she was to text me a certain word, and it could be like her favorite color, it could be her pet's name when she was a little kid, just something that means something to you, but the victim wouldn't know what it meant. And if she was to text me that word, I know that things were getting really bad and that I needed to send help for her. And so I actually had that. Well, lo and behold, my husband and I got married last August during the pandemic. It was horrible, but we made it work. At the end of the day, it was about being married. But lo and
If you got
behold,
something, yeah,
it
of course.
it was. But lo and behold, we were on our honeymoon in Tennessee because a lot of things were closed down. So it's not like we could go out of the country or anything. But lo and behold, that's when he decided to show himself. And he beat on her legs pretty bad and left bruises all up and down her legs. And figures I was in another state and couldn't come to her rescue. So, but it worked out. Another friend ended up coming to her rescue. But I did get the text even though I was on my honeymoon, and I was worried sick about her. But that I take calls or texts 24/7. It didn't matter that it was my honeymoon. So even the day of my wedding, I had someone else was in charge of my phone, in case. But that's what it's like when you're an advocate. You're on call 24/7. But I felt so terrible because when she needed me, I wasn't there. But she had been a bridesmaid in the wedding too, and she understood. But we were just thankful that someone had come to her rescue. So, but and now pretty much all of my friends that were in abusive relationships are now finally out of those relationships. So yeah,
That's very
a
good.
couple of them I kind of had to give them advice and try to help them, tell them what they could do, how to get out of it. Hers is a little hairy because, um, he claims to be disabled, but he doesn't get disability. But he's threatening to take half of everything she has, so it's going to be a very messy divorce. He wants half of the 401k and half of the property, and so.
Yeah,
But
yeah, there are
they're not.
cases like this.
But she's away from him and she's safe now, so that's
That's
all that
good.
matters.
Yeah, good, very good. Thank you for sharing your story and all the helpful tools. And I'm going to give you a chance to share the places where people are going to be able to talk to you, get in touch with you. Although I'm also available 24/7 to help women in domestic violence and abuse, I'm here for them
Hmm.
anytime. So, how they can, like particularly in Illinois, be able to get to you and what you'll be able to offer to them?
Well, honestly, every state has a domestic violence hotline. But the easiest way is just the national hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. Um, if you can't do a phone call, you can always do www.thehotline.org, and they can reroute you for what area you're in or what state. But also every state does have one too.
And these are my last words for everybody. What is the point to be in each other's life when you cannot get along? Even sometimes counseling therapy doesn't help, and why both of you are not allowed to take you towards your happiness and find somebody who can match your personality, who can treat you the way you should be treated, and you have the only life you have to be fulfilled with happiness, with joy, with somebody who is for you. This is my question. Why are you two together fighting, stalking each other? Why is this happen? What is the point? Why you want to live this turbulent life when you can live a peaceful life with somebody who again can matches your personality and somebody who is for you? Because there is comes time in this life when people are outgrowing up the other partner. They're no longer having this connection in the beginning, and it's not anybody's fault. It's not your children's fault even. Just things in life happened, people change, and we need to learn to live with it. This is something that everybody should understand. And if you have questions, you can always find sources online. You can reach to me. You can do anything if you want to find intelligent way out of situation which is not healthy for anybody. And we want to raise children with love, raise children in peace. We don't want children to be traumatized. We don't want children to find the same partner in their life and feel like what is going on in their life it's okay, because we know very well that it's not okay, and we know how to distinguish between wrong and right. So I hope this is going to make a difference in somebody's life. It's going to make you think about the things you do, as well as spending a lot of money on attorneys, going to court, and making your life stressful. And right now, at this moment, things are so stressful for everybody. How about we find a way, intelligent way to communicate with each other, to be friends, and to build life for ourselves with other partners? How about we do this with love, compassion, and kindness? I hope this is going to make huge difference. And children should never be exposed to constant fights, constant drama, and all the dangerous things that fear in a relationship. Mommy being hurt, daddy being hurt. We don't need this. On the top of destroying somebody's mental health and spending a lot of money on therapies, counseling. What is the point? I don't understand. So thank you so much for being with me. And if you want to get in touch with Miss Kuterba, the link is going to be below this video, and the video is available on YouTube as well. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.